So I wanted to make a video regarding organized harassment, sometimes called gang stalking. And the reason I'm making this video is after I've dealt with some very, very long-standing electronic harassment on YouTube that began literally when I started my channel. Now, I never took into consideration that some of these people were anything more than alt-right trolls that didn't like my opinions regarding Donald Trump, because at first everything seemed to revolve around me being a crazy liberal and things of that nature. Now, anybody that knows me in life knows that I'm the opposite of a liberal. I'm the polar opposite of a liberal. But these were troll accounts. These were accounts that were made that day, the day that the harassment started, etc., and they were saying very stupid things and things of that nature. At first, they were harassing my friend from Argentina, whose name I'll say because it's all over the place now, Eliana. And they would call her things like Mexican. They'd use racial slurs against her and things like that. I don't even know if she knew that or even recognized the racial slurs, because these were racial slurs that Americans use against Mexicans. So I don't think that those racial slurs would even, I don't think many Argentinians are familiar with some of the racial slurs that are used by Americans against Mexicans. And no, I am not saying the racial slurs on YouTube. I'm not that stupid. But ultimately, that's how this started many, many years ago, almost many years ago. I actually forget. I think it's almost like 6 years ago at this point. And it was when I first started my YouTube channel. I did a couple public videos. Many of them have been taken down because I got worried that because they had to deal with things like, racial reality and things like that YouTube doesn't like anymore. So I took them down because I don't want to risk losing my channel. This channel was made for communication with a friend of mine, and it will remain as such. But ultimately, what happened was I believe that my former employer had hired, I believe that there are people for hire to harass people. Now, the online harassment was a large part of a much bigger thing. Now, I've gone over this in other videos. The first thing that got me starting to question whether or not it was my former employer was when one of the individuals who was calling themselves Ice Queen Your Worst Nightmare told my friend Eliana that I was a dangerous racist and that she needed to stay away from me because I was a dangerous racist. Now, many years later, another person named Tig Manson said the same thing, which clicked in my head years later. Now, what's unfortunate is they do stalk Eliana's profile on Facebook. I don't believe they were in communication with her, but they obviously stalk her profile on Facebook because they were able to tell me things that I said on her Facebook recently to make it look like it was somebody that knows her. I don't believe it's anybody that knows Eliana. I don't believe it's her family. I don't believe it's even her baby dad. I don't believe that. Because this gets stranger and stranger and stranger as it goes on. And the reason I think that these people are to hire, now, it gets weirder than the electronic harassment, but why I believe that this is people for hire is they finally burned up their troll accounts. And this is organized because they're all hitting me with the same crap. Now, people don't know this, and I never participated in this, but this was a tactic used by Trump and used by Mrs. Clinton and used by other political figures. I don't know if it was to their knowledge or not. I would assume Trump knew about it. But what they would do is they would get groups of trolls together to swarm the other people, like Mrs. Clinton, when Trump said something about her emails, and I forget, but people would swarm her with crazy accusations and things of that nature to shut her down. And it did work. It did work. And like I always said, President Trump was the first president we ever had that was memed into office. First one ever. And he was memed into office by armies of trolls. That's what happened. Now, some of these trolls, they never calmed down. Okay, but there is a real essentially, after these people burned up their trolling accounts, I got to see where they were from. One of the gentlemen, calling himself something Vader, I forget off the top of my head, he's from the UK. Now, my friend Eliana, people that don't see, this is the thing, people, and I'll get into the accusations, but the accusations against me by these people in what's known as a smear campaign. So what happened was, this gentleman is, but this is the thing, these people are unfamiliar with political nuances and global politics and things of that nature. My friend Eliana does not associate with many people from the UK. It's very rare that she would associate with people from the UK. Why does she not associate with people from the UK? Well, the reason why is there's something called the Falkland Islands dispute. Argentina claims that these islands off the coast of Argentina are Argentina's. Great Britain declared that they're theirs. Argentina tried to take them back in the 80s. Great Britain sent many destroyers and whatever. There was a small war called the Falkland Islands War, and many Argentinians were killed by the British over these islands that, in my opinion, actually should belong to Argentina, and even in the opinion of the Reagan administration, who basically told England, because at the time the United States was backing Argentina as a bulwark against communism in the region, and the Reagan administration told England, they're like, look, can't you just kind of just give them the islands? And Margaret Thatcher lost her mind, and many British people, like I had an Irish boss at one of the mental health places I worked, and she was Irish, but she was all about England. She was a traitor to Ireland, essentially. She had a English husband, and she was all proud about how Margaret Thatcher whipped those Argentinians. It would be like the United States bragging about winning a war with, like, I don't know, Haiti. It doesn't make any sense. What are you bragging about? It's a first world power with nuclear capabilities, bragging about taking out a country like Argentina. That's shameful. It's shameful, but many of them still brag about it to this day. So my friend from Argentina does not associate with many people from Great Britain for that very reason. They're very ignorant towards Argentinians, and people don't understand that. So this gentleman, something Vader, is from Great Britain, and he's claiming, he's talking to Eliana. A lot of the reason it revolved around Eliana is because Eliana is something they can use to agitate me, and they know she's something they can use to agitate me, and that's why they don't let up on that. But they will let up, because I'm just going to block all their accounts from now on. I'm not putting up with this crap. At first I thought that these were, it doesn't help to block the accounts because they just generate new ones, but at this point I have burnt up all their accounts because I'm starting to see who these people really are. And it is a mixture of Antifa, it's a mixture of the alt-right, it's a mixture of a lot of people. And the reason, how is this a mixture? Why are these people working together? Well, because of different rumors that have been told to people during the smear campaign. I've been accused of being a pedophile. I've been accused of being a racist. I've been accused of being a communist with U.S. values. But I've been accused of being a communist prior to being a communist with U.S. values. I've been accused of a lot of things by a lot of different people. And this is part of what's called the smear campaign. But the thing is, this doesn't just take place in cyberspace. It takes place in reality. I've had people have tried to get in. People have been in my apartment. I've been missing things from my apartment. And interestingly enough, one of the things that was missing from my apartment, although I got another one, was a makeup bag full of different, makeups, cute little designer makeups for Eliana. When I was going to go down, I had like a llama, like a little stuffed llama in there because she likes llamas. I had 2 books on Jesuit cooking, Jesuit soup making, and Jesuit bread making. I had a book on Aesop's fables. I had different things that I know that Eliana likes. And, People have been in my apartment when I haven't been in my apartment. People have been in my apartment when I have been in my apartment. And that's really bizarre. But the point is, the real life stalking started in the most interesting way. I was having a dispute with my former employer because they had certain social services that I needed. Because I ended up being homeless again, because I got thrown out of my exes because of the situation with Eliana, and after taking care of my ex, she didn't want me here no more for a while, and she threw me out. So I'm walking at a park, just walking for exercise. I like to walk. It's one of the things I do. And I've mentioned this in previous videos. There's a guy with a high-powered camera, like a super scope camera, taking pictures of me from like maybe 300 feet away. That's not necessary. But at first, and he's writing things in a notepad. At first I'm thinking to myself, well, this is just a private investigator. My former employer has hired a private investigator in the hopes to prove that I'm not really homeless. That's what I had thought, because they hated me, and they did everything they could to avoid giving me any services, and they eventually did not give me any services, and I had to go through other avenues to get those services. And I didn't forget that, in case they're watching, and I know they are. So what happened was, I'm looking over at this guy now. At one time, that's okay. You know, that's whatever. Every day it's happening. Then it got to the point where I'm uncomfortable at the park, so I start walking around the neighborhood. There was one car parked at a, just like a intersection. And I'm like, oh well, it's whatever. It's somebody waiting for their kid to get off the bus. Not realizing, because I'm trying to rationalize this weirdness. Not realizing that this person's there every day. There's no bus stop around. Why the hell are they parked there? And why are they watching me? Why are they taking pictures of me with a camera? That was the other thing. Then it got to the point where I'm walking around the town, and sedans are coming up to me, almost hitting me. And I didn't think to record any of this. Luckily, my ex-girlfriend has noticed, like, I would go walking with her now at night, and we were being followed by people in cars, same trucks, very loud trucks at this point, at like 2 in the morning, because she works late, so when we walk, it's like 1, 2 in the morning. So they get these really loud, really large trucks, and they go by real fast on these residential roads. But I'm going back to the beginning. So these cars would go by me and almost hit me. They'd swerve like they're going to hit me, and then boom, pull the wheel so they don't hit me. And it was always the same sedans. It was almost like a fleet of sedans, like, you know, like the FBI would use, or like undercover cop cars. They were black Fords, okay, like police cars. So I'm thinking, oh well, whatever. It's just weird, you know what I mean? Because you don't want to think that this kind of thing is going on. When it got to the point where I couldn't deny it, at first I was still denying it because somebody had put silly string all over my door where I live, and I'm like, it's just the kids, because everybody I live's like they're crazy. They're completely crazy, because I live in an area that's completely crazy, and I won't elaborate because I don't want my video to get taken down. So I'm like, it's just the kids. Then, you know, that went on for a while, different nonsense, like stuff outside my door. Then what really led me to understand was when the makeup bag went missing. I'm like, okay, somebody was physically in my apartment, my locked apartment. Then about 2 weeks after that, I'm on the phone, actually, with my ex-girlfriend. And I hear the door, somebody has a key in the door, and they're opening my door with a key. Now, people will go, well, how did they get a key to your door? You can buy master keys to certain locks, especially from a locksmith, or if you have access to a locksmith. There's a lot of things you can do. So I'm like, okay. So I just wait by the door until they open the door. It was a white chick, okay? Like a Caucasian chick, like me, okay? I have no white neighbors, okay? So I go to the office and I'm like, yo, did the former resident, like, what did they look like? And I'm like, because I think they're trying to get in my apartment. And the girl in my office was a little Hispanic girl. And she goes, no, we changed your locks. And I go, well, there was a woman trying to get into my apartment with a key last night. And, you know, it's interesting to me. And she said, well, and she goes, well, what did she look like? Was she Hispanic? And I'm like, because she goes, maybe it was the cleaning woman. I'm like, the cleaning woman at like 10 o'clock at night? And she goes, that's odd, but was she Hispanic looking? I'm like, no, it was a white woman. And she responded and she goes, well, that's really crazy because you don't have any white neighbors. All my neighbors are, actually all my neighbors are black. I have like 2 Hispanic neighbors, but my neighbors are all black. Like I live in an all black complex. And I told her, I go, look, I don't know what's going on. I confronted the woman. She ran away. So long story short, my lock gets changed. It stops for a little bit. People stop coming in and out of my apartment. But then maybe about a month later, I'm sleeping in my bedroom, okay? And I have my keys on my kitchen counter, my house keys, my apartment keys. And there's an inside key and an outside key to get, one opens the building and another one opens the door, like the inside door. So my door is locked. Okay, I always lock my door because of the area I live in. I never stay in my apartment with the door open because that's asking for problems, of course, because you don't know what will happen. So I'm sleeping in my bedroom, and I get up, and I go to get my mail, and I notice that my mail key's on there too, and I notice I'm missing the key to the inside door. Now, I don't know if you've ever taken a key off a key ring. It takes some doing to get the key off the key ring. So somebody had actually come into my door. Now, I had to invest in an alarm system because of this. They had to come in my apartment, walk into my kitchen, and literally move the key all around the key ring to get it off the key ring. And that's when I realized, yeah, there is definitely something going on, and changing my lock isn't going to help this. And the police don't help either. The police just think you're crazy, which is part of the reason that people do this. But there's no way that key came off my key ring without somebody removing it, okay? And I've heard people give me theories like ghosts. But believe me, it was not a ghost. And I'm going to get into talking about ghosts one of these days for Halloween. So what happened was I had different keys made. Luckily, my ex has keys to my apartment. So I had keys made so that I had keys. And, I changed my lock, blah, 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 whatever. It doesn't make a difference because they have access to skeleton keys. They have access to keys that work in all sorts of locks, which I know now, okay? Long story short, the types of accusations. Now, I've dealt with gang stalking in the past. Dealing with my support of Dr. David Duke for the Louisiana Senate, I was gang stalked by Israel, by a number of Israelis. Or people claiming to be Israelis, I should be correct. One of them claimed to be an Israeli soldier that was going to kill me and all this stuff. And this was due to my support of Dr. David Duke for the Louisiana Senate in the 2016 election. And long story short, that all fizzled out after his candidacy went kaputski. So I've dealt with that, and organized stalking is popular amongst the Israeli Mossad. Rose McGowan let that out about how Harvey Weinstein was hiring Mossad to harass her. But how gang stalking works, it's more insidious, I think, than simply hiring people to harass people. I think that it might be hiring somebody to convince people that they are justified in harassing somebody. Because, as I said, I've been accused of being everything from a racist to a pedophile to this to that. And some of these things may have some merit, okay? But, like, for example, when they were accusing me of being a pedophile and I'm going to leave links in the description to show this is what happens, and gang stalking is real. People really do participate in this. I know for a fact that Trump supporters participated in this to shut down Hillary Clinton. I do know this for a fact. It happened on social media. It's still happening on social media. But it's not even politically oriented anymore. They're just targeting regular, everyday people like me. So essentially, what happened was they were accusing me of pedophilia. I am a great deal older than my friend Eliana. That's obvious. I'm like 13 and a half years older than her. But I'm not a pedophile. When I met Eliana online, she was 22 years old. She was not under the age of 18. And even if that were the case, that's still not the psychiatric definition, the DSM definition of pedophilia. But my point is, I'm not a pedophile. But these people were accusing me of being a pedophile for me showing that I had sexual interest in a 24-year-old. At this time she was 24. Now she's 26, and they're still laying into me over it. And then on top of that, the accusations, like I said, originally started as "you're a racist," and that person claimed to be my supervisor from my job. And I'm pretty sure I know which supervisor it was. But I think this has even grown it's outgrown the original concepts of the campaign, the smear campaign, and the campaign of destruction that has been waged against me. And luckily for me, I actually did eventually seek therapy, because I started thinking I was losing it, but I wasn't losing it. So lucky for me, I sought the services of therapists, okay, in my community. And one of the good things about the mental health clinic I used to work at is it's notoriously evil. Like, nobody has left this agency on good terms. And if they did leave on good terms, they didn't leave on good terms. They just didn't do anything against the company because they know the company has a policy to destroy people that leave on bad terms. They tell you they'll destroy you. As I said in previous videos, my supervisor literally held up my mental health record because I went there as a youth and said that she would use my mental health record to destroy me if I told the county the truth. The truth about the way that place runs. She threatened to destroy me with my mental health record. Okay, and then, of course, everybody knows how I was fired. She comes down, she's a lunatic. And gang stalking, I think, is heavily invested in mental health and in psychiatric abuse. I think the two go hand in hand. Not necessarily that psychiatrists are knowingly participating in it, but some of them I think obviously are. I think the mental health industry at large is a great boon to these people because they like to label these people as this, this, or this. But my benefit was that my former employer is notorious for harassing people that have used to work there. It's notorious for harassing people that currently work there. It's a notoriously toxic work environment. So the therapist that I saw previously was a colleague of mine at my former employer, so she believed what I was saying, because it was odd, because they're bringing up my work record, key aspects about my mental health record. Certain things are appearing in the comments of my YouTube videos that nobody would have access to, and even if somebody had hacked the computer system of my former employer, there's no way in hell that they would have had access to my mental health record, because my mental health record is a paper record. And I know it's paper because they're too lazy to scan it into the system, number one. But number two, I work there. I tried to find my mental health record in the computer system. You can't do it. Now, what was funny is a friend of mine, who knows that my friend Eliana is a computer scientist, tried telling me that he thought that she had hacked this agency's computer system and that's who was doing it, which is a pretty desperate attempt to throw me off the track. Okay? There's no way that Eliana... Now, what's funny is my friend was the IT guy there, so he knows damn well my mental health record's not on that computer system. He was also a former case manager of mine, which is how I knew him as a youth. I've known this guy for many years, and I'm not blaming him. He was just doing his job defending this shit company. But there is no way that my friend from Argentina, who is a computer scientist and does know her way around computer systems and everything else, there's no way she got that information by hacking this computer system, because it's not in the computer system. It's a hard paper file like this. It's physical paper. It's paper documents. So even if she could hack the computer system, she wouldn't get the system. Though, when I was trying to seek services from these people, they would only offer me services from the person that was responsible for spreading rumors about me that got me fired in the first place, and assured me that he had access to my file. Now, I don't think it was him necessarily. It might be him. But I do think it was my former employer, my former supervisor, who acted like a lunatic, and maybe this dude in combination. Now, he's friends with the commissioner of mental health for the county, which I verified through numerous sources. Okay? And that's the thing is, you have to go into crazy, like you have to turn into a counter stalker to find the bottom of all these things. Now, the reason I thought that this might be about Eliana, is because these current ones, they seem to know about Eliana. They know things that I recently put on her Facebook profile before she blocked me. They don't know Eliana. They don't. They're stalking Eliana. And a therapist friend of mine, that's a therapist, explained that this is all what's called projecting. When they're calling me a schizoaffective, I have schizoaffective disorder, according to them. She thinks they have schizoaffective disorder by their erratic behavior and obsession with me and with Eliana and all this. She thinks that they have schizoaffective disorder. She thinks that they have these, and obviously they do have these problems, probably with the pedophilia and the racism and the stuff like that. But they're projecting that onto me to try and sick the hounds of hell on me, if you get what I'm saying. And the hounds of hell are these other stalkers, which, as I said, you have a smattering of radical leftists, you have a smattering of alt-right, you have a smattering of Trump supporters. What's interesting enough, I haven't seen one Argentinian, I haven't seen not one verifiable Argentinian anyway, not one Hispanic stalking me. These people have all been whites that have been stalking me, especially in real life. They've all been white. And it does seem to always go back to my former employer in some way, shape, or form. Though I think at this point what happened is they have allowed this to fester and manifest as a much larger conspiracy against me, to destroy me. And they have threatened to destroy other employees. I'm still talking to a number of employees that they've threatened to destroy. And that's what's going on here, is they're trying to destroy my life. If Eliana wants to talk to me, and this is what they don't understand, if Eliana wants to talk to me, nobody's keeping Eliana from talking to me besides Eliana. And that's the truth. Eliana needs somebody to love her in her life. And I will do that. And there's nothing that can happen that will make me stop being Eliana's friend. Eliana can stop being my friend. Eliana can choose not to speak to me. Eliana, I do not have any control over Eliana, nor do I seek control over Eliana. However, I think this whole rigmarole may unfortunately make her believe that I'm severely mentally unstable. I'm not mentally unstable. I'm just, I've been driven over the edge over the years by constant harassment by people claiming to be related to her, claiming to be boyfriends of her, claiming to be what have you. And that's what has driven me so far to these things. But I've never gotten mad at Eliana. Eliana should know that. She knows I love her no matter what. She knows she's my friend no matter what, I hope. I hope she doesn't think I'm mentally insane or mentally unstable at this point. But the point is that this is, the electronic harassment is merely the most visible, the most publicly visible aspect of a campaign of destruction waged against me, most likely by my former employer, but it has outgrown the reins of the former employer and has become an international conspiracy being manifest over cyberspace and in my local community. But it has, honestly, as far as I can tell, the harassment in the local community has died down. We've stopped being followed at night, although it was, and that's the thing, it's quite obvious. When you have a truck with a glass pack muffler at 2:30 in the morning, the same truck going by at 2:30 in the frickin' morning while you're walking, knowing where you're going to walk because you're following the same walking route, that's a pretty dead giveaway that somebody is trying to intimidate you, somebody is trying to mess with your head.
Just like with the sedans that would almost hit me and then swerve away. But it wasn't just one sedan. You would have like 3, 4 of these things around the neighborhood at once. And then people will go, well, how do you know it's not law enforcement? I went to school for criminal justice. I majored in criminal justice. I've studied law enforcement. I've studied law enforcement tactics. I've studied private investigation, etc. Nowhere in either private investigation nor in law enforcement should you try and hit some random dude with your car because you're trying to get dirt on them. That's not a tactic by local law enforcement. Okay? So I don't believe it was local law enforcement. It's somebody with money. Needless to say, my former employer has a fleet operation, and they also have deep pockets because they're government funded by UNICEF and the U.S. government and other things. So they have the ability to afford a fleet of vehicles or to rent vehicles that aren't theirs to do that. So that's all for this video. Finally, I burnt through all these frickin' profiles. Finally, I'm starting to see who these people are, and even though the fact that they're so disconnected is actually what makes them so connected. And no, it's not Freemasons, for everybody that's wondering. No, it's still not the Freemasons, or the space aliens, or the reptilians, or the reptoids, or whatever the hell you want to say. These are average people that have been convinced that I am the enemy of the public. And that's why they're doing it. And they've been convinced of that through a smear campaign that was crafted probably by my former employer. And that's all for this video.